It's February of 2018, and I still can't believe we are having the debate that violent video games cause real-life violence. This is one of my favorite or pet topics to talk about because it's extremely important to me, and it's extremely clear to me where the evidence lies. We've talked about this again and again, and it's been disseminated as in 2011 it was. We've spent so much time and money in the courts deciding whether or not video games qualify as free speech, First Amendment rights, or whether or not they actually cause real world violence. And it's been debunked again and again, and the evidence isn't there. And yet we still have people in the wake of the Parkland, Florida high school shooting claiming, oh, I don't think the NRA is to blame for this. It's probably imaginary guns. And this includes Governor of Kentucky, Matt Bevin, who recently decided to use this time to not, it's not the time to talk about guns or what we should do about guns, but it is the time to talk about how little we value free speech. The First Amendment is not as important as the Second Amendment. Don't be silly. But really, this is maddening. So on this topic, Governor Bevin said, "I'm a big believer in the First Amendment and right to free speech, but there are certain things that are so graphic as it relates to violence and things that are so pornographic on a whole another front that we allow to pass under the guise of free speech, which arguably are. But there is zero redemptive value. There is zero upside of any of this being in the public domain, let alone in the minds and hands and homes of our young people." He has also told reporters, "We can't celebrate death in video games, celebrate death in TV shows, celebrate death in movies, celebrate death in musical lyrics, and remove any sorts of morality and sense of higher authority, and then expect that things are not going to happen." This is so stupid. We've had this discussion many times, and every time the First Amendment has come through as the winner in the courts, in researchers that have not been discredited for being biased one way or the other. This issue is a non-issue. We've already solved this. Many researchers have taken up reasons as to why video games are not connected with real world violence. In particular, we have a ruling from 2011 in which the Supreme Court talked on this, saying, "Psychological studies purporting to show a connection between exposure to violent video games and harmful effects on children do not prove that such exposure causes minors to act aggressively. Criminologists who study mass shootings typically refer to those sorts of connections as, quote, a myth." And in 2017, the Media Psychology and Technology Division of the American Psychological Association released a statement suggesting that reporters and policymakers cease linking mass shootings to violent media, given the complete lack of evidence for a link. And this is going back to a long history that we've done over and over again, and yet still have not realized a pattern. This is a history of moral panic. There was a time in the 1950s when comic books were to blame for the degeneracy of the youths. There was the time in the 80s when Tipper Gore decided to blame rock and roll music for violence, sex, and Satanism. Remember the satanic panic of the 80s? It was completely unfounded and stupid. So when you review scholarly literature, it doesn't make sense either. It's actually been found in some cases that spikes in violent video games popularity are pretty well known to correlate with substantial declines in youth violences, not increase. And research from Christopher J. Ferguson, who is a leader in this field, who has consulted many times in research regarding the so-called link between violence in video games and violence in the real life, has also found that video games are associated with immediate declines in violent crime, hinting that maybe that release may cause a drop-off. But I think the crux of this is that, yes, there are violent things in the world. There are people who act violently, but there is not a connection between that and watching violence in movies or television or rock and roll music or even video games. It's just something people say because it's easy, or maybe they don't understand it and it's easy to form what you don't understand into some kind of demonic thing that's influencing the youths of America. And that's not the case. banning PUBG or banning Overwatch is not going to solve this problem. You know damn well what is going to solve this problem. What's wrong? Is the ESA not paying you enough lobby money? It's very hard to view these faux gravitas messages of, oh, it's the video games, as being anything more than toothless replies of ignoring what the real problems might be. Maybe we should look to mental health. Maybe we shouldn't defund mental health and make it harder to access and then blame that reason entirely after. It makes no sense. Maybe there needs to be some sort of regulation on guns. Oh my God, did I say something really controversial? Why does this matter more than people's lives? Why have you decided that well-spoken teenage protesters are actually just actors and liars because they disagree with your agenda? This is insane, and I can't believe we are still blaming video games in 2018 despite court rulings, despite research, data, all information that we have is pointing to the opposite way, and it has been for years, and it's still something we're talking about. It's insane. Audience, what are your thoughts? Please let me know online.